Hello and welcome back to my studio. Well, recently I did a demonstration using Golden Open Acrylics, and in that demonstration I mentioned there was another one coming. I was going to try out the acrylics with a new painting, and this is it. Another full demonstration to give you an idea of how Golden Open Acrylics works and whether it's the right medium for you. Let's begin. Now, in that previous demonstration, which you can find a link at the end of this video, I had paints left over. In fact, so much acrylic paint was still left on my palette. I gave it a spritz with some water, just left it out overnight, and the next day the paint was just as soft as I had started the painting. So I had to use that paint, and I created this painting which we're going to look at today. Now, I previously did a painting of this same subject using oils, and here's that painting you can see, and I've also linked to that demonstration at the end of this video, so you're going to be able to see how acrylics handles the same subject. What's the comparison going to be at the end? I'll show them both next to each other. So let's have a look at the demonstration and how it unfolded, and then we can discuss the results at the end. This is the beautiful village of Greyton in the Western Cape. And I'm starting off the painting. I'm painting on a panel, 23 by 31 centimeters. I'm going to just start off with drawing out the composition in a very loose fashion, just keeping the pencil moving. This is obviously speed up just a little to get through this, but the idea is keep the pencil on the canvas or panel that you're working on and just try to eyeball the reference or the scene in front of you and get it down in a sort of rough fashion. It's a guide, and what I'm always trying to tell my students, when you're drawing for painting, try to keep proportions accurate, so compare one shape to another. The drawing doesn't have to be in a realistic, perfect fashion. That's not what we're doing. So you're getting a composition down, that's most important, and you know where your lights and darks are going to be. And then you can get stuck into the painting. Now I'm using the same palette as I explained earlier. There's a lovely little misty cloud rising at the top of the mountains there, and I'm just going to get these ideas in very early, moving on now to the dark shapes. This is the classic way I start most paintings and get those dark shapes in. Helps to establish the composition and structure from the very beginning. When you're putting in your dark paint, keep white paint out of it. The darks must be transparent and clear of any colors that are going to unduly bring out your mix. In here I've got ultramarine and burnt sienna. And if I brought in white paint, the ultramarine would turn a very clear blue, and that would defeat the object of the dark, shadowy shapes. So pretty much no white paint in the darks to begin with. Here I'm getting some color into the tree. It's quite a prominent feature in the painting. Still just working with color and not tinting it with white paint. Using the quinacridone red as my cool red. And I want color in the tree, so there'll be a bit of burnt sienna coming into that as well. Reds, and I'm going to put a little bit more light on the side of the tree. The light's coming in from right to left. And I will add some rim lighting to the trees just to emphasize that point, linking up with the shadows in the foreground. Putting a few dark shapes here and there as well where I expect to have them in the painting, and now I'm moving on to some of the lights. I'm going to start with the mountain side. There's a nice soft light hitting the rolling foothills of the mountain. So we're just using a little bit of white now to desaturate. And you'll see white paint cools down the color quite dramatically. There's a touch of blue in there as well. And I'm getting a sort of a light grayish yellow, yellow-green, mostly heading towards a yellow ochre. Also cutting in a little where I expect to show a bit of mountainside through the trees at the back there. A little more color in the foreground. Shadow and light. Very important. The shadow pattern is emphasized from an early stage in the painting. It's so easy to forget the objectives in your painting, and any sort of landscape, light has got to be the most important element. And light stands out nicely against shadow, so get those shadows in. Don't be tempted to just focus on drawing things accurately, otherwise you're going to forget about the light. And speaking of light, I've got to get rid of some of this light coming across my palette, so I'll just take care of that. And that's a bit better. Quite ironic, isn't it? But there we have it. Very important not to let sunlight fall across your palette if you're painting outdoors, because it blows out the colors and you lose your shadow-light relationships, and your painting can look a bit odd when you take it indoors. So there's some trees catching some light in the background, more or less autumn trees, and the light's diffusing through them, creating a sort of a yellowy orange color. I'm emphasizing that orange, as you can see, but we'll paint over that with a few details as we go along, so it's not going to be too dominating. But if you've got layers of shapes, start with the background and then work your way forward into the shapes in the middle and foreground, and then you will have a lot less trouble later on refining the painting. Some of the branches are in shadow, so I'll paint them with blue or a blue-violet. Others will be catching full light, and this way you get something that's not just a silhouette. And that can look very, very artificial, so some variety of light and shade. Just a cool white, more or less a sort of a grey-violet color for the shadow side of the building. This is still the blocking in stage of the painting, so fairly thin layers. I'm using just a nylon brush, but fairly large, long flat. And this just helps to block in the building's colors very easily, just in broad shapes. All you really need is to suggest the light and shadow. So this beautiful warm light on the garden wall not only leads the eye in, but creates a beautiful contrast with all the shadow colors behind it. That's also going to offset the building. But there's going to be a bit of light coming through and just catching some of the wall and things like a chimney as well. I'll add in over here just to get a burst of light as well. And the yellows against the violet stands out very nicely, complementary colors. So let's continue with blocking in the shapes in the background. Just finish off the lights on those hills and then start bringing in some of the shadow pattern on that hill. Shadow reaching over to the left. Everything consistent with the direction of the sunlight, of course. At this stage, things look very loose as well, and that's how you want it. There's that ugly middle stage of a painting. You just get through that, get through all the blocking in, get all your light and shadow patterns in, get your color relationships established, and then you can start refining the important shapes, making smaller shapes within the big shapes. So kind of like the pixels on a photograph. You're starting off with very big pixelated photo and you making them smaller as you go. I like to think of it as also laying down ceramic tiles, so each brushstroke is a tile that you're putting down and you build up the details that way. So that misty top portion is going to be soft edged, leaning more towards a sort of a cooler violet. There's a bit of sunlight in the reference, but I'm keeping that fairly cool. I don't want it to attract a lot of attention, so all the attention is going to be in the nice warm colors and contrasts in the foreground. There's plenty going on there, so balance things out. You need a few soft areas where the eye can rest a little, and I think that top of the mountain will do that. Just suggesting a bit of the building in the background there, just another part of the building heading off the glimpse of the roof. Some windows in the side, keeping things once again very loose, trying to avoid the temptation to paint these things very accurately. But it would look odd if one part of the painting is all tightly rendered and then the rest is fairly loose as well. So remain consistent, and I prefer a sort of a slightly off-kilter looseness to the buildings as well. Not too much. It's got to still look fundamentally sound. We're just using the brush a little with a little more life to it, a more painterly approach, as they would say. Okay, some shadows on the side of the tree. A few more suggested trees just pushed back a little by making them a bit softer edged as well. The road, it is an asphalt road, but with light on it. It's got a slight pink look to it, pinkish violet. A warm color is all it needs to be against the cool shadows, and a bit of vibrant springtime greens, just warmed up with that morning light. Shapes of the shrubbery, etc., with a highlight. Some light catching the tree. A little bit of improvisation here. The reference is a little less vibrant. The colors are not quite as vibrant on this side, but I'm getting some nice warm yellows with a bit of ultramarine and deep yellow. There's a bit of shrubbery on the sidewalk here. Just get a little bit of definition with a shadow to it. So the variety of colors within a shape, for instance the sidewalk, has warm yellows, but they are different colors. Some are a bit more yellow ochre, some are a lemon yellow, and so on. But that variety is what you're looking for. Those are basically temperature changes, and it adds texture and just a little bit more interest to a shape. Here, this shadow area is being broken up with a few sort of medium shadow colors, and that's an important thing. As I said, you got to break up your shapes, but try to keep the value consistent. A shadow must remain a shadow, and a light must remain a light. But now you're playing with the temperature of the colors. Here, just a warmer orangey color, but it's still within the light side of the tree. Although there's a bit of stronger light just catching the sort of leading edge of the tree trunk. Cutting in a little to make the tree trunk shapes and branches a bit more interesting, not too hard-edged and perfect. Here I'm just dragging the brush, getting a very scumbled, diffused shape, because those are thinner branches and they have a bit more of an atmospheric look, diffused a little into the light. It doesn't matter if in the reference you're seeing very strong shapes at the top of the tree. To make it more painterly and look diffused and light, as if there is atmosphere acting on the shapes, you've got to soften the edges, get a bit of lost and found shapes as well. Just lift the brush here or there and you get that lost and found tree branch. It does make a difference. This warm color I'm putting on is still a cool. Now it's catching a little more light. So even though these are reds going into a shadow, they remain cool, and it doesn't change the shadow because compared to the light, it still remains a shadow. Okay, so that's how shadows aren't just dull, dark areas. There is life within the shadows. Touch of warm green, bit of deep yellow, a little bit of ultramarine. There's erratic shapes for the side of the conifer. So it's not too perfect. You want your conifer to look like it's had a tough life. That makes it interesting. You don't want a perfect Christmas tree. Just a few lights showing through leaves here or there, catching the sunlight. I always say the mind fills in the details. You don't have to paint all the details. Give your viewer some credit to figure things out, and your viewer will have a bit more fun with your painting. This is probably even more important if you're doing something like watercolors, where the watercolors act almost by magic on their own. When you're not looking, they've fallen into place, as it were. And it's pretty much the same with acrylics as well, or oils for that matter. Don't over-describe your shapes. Let the brush play a bit. Okay, I've swapped to a rigger brush to get a few narrower shapes, a little more drawing a few of these verticals, suggestive of smaller trees in the background or smaller shapes in the tree itself. adding a few little touches of rim lighting, and we'll add a few leaves as we go. Not all of them. Don't even think of that. We are simply representing just defining the tree in the light. So now the tree trunk has so many little temperature variations and color variations. It's now an interesting shape. Suggested some sort of utility pole on the right, and now some sort of tree trunk. But mostly it's just vertical shapes that I'm bringing in, and we'll bring some posts on the wall here as well, helping to break up the shapes behind it. And it also helps to pull the painting together as a little more detail, bit more definition in the lights. So all in all, it's starting to pull itself together. Things are starting to read correctly. You can figure things out as you go, but still not over-described. These are these leaves, once again, suggestions of the leaves, certainly no more than that. And this is just the primrose cadmium yellow acting as my lemon yellow, providing a nice cool, vibrant yellow in the painting. Scumbling a bit of light on the grass in the foreground, dragging paint over the thinner paint below. Rapidly coming to its conclusion, adding a sort of few final defining shapes. Just here or there, repeating colors to get a touch of harmony. Touches of red in over there amongst those tree shapes. Breaking up the shadows just a bit so they're not too flat, but we don't want them too busy either. So once again, try to balance busy with calm areas in the painting. Just trying to get a little bit of a richer purpley red on the shadow side of the tree. I think that's quite pleasing. I'm quite happy with that. Just a bit too much going on here. Break up a few of those shapes as well. I'm thinking of blue and its complement of the orange in the background, so just a little bit of contrast there. Couple of little shadow shapes, and let's quickly get a figure in. I had this in my original oil painting, just someone working in the garden perhaps, so we'll put him back in. And I must just fix up that garden fence a bit. Touch of color. Cut in with the background a little there just to help the figure improve the shape and also let the dark stand out against the light. That's a bit better. Okay, let's repair that wall. One brush stroke, that's quite convenient. So overall, very colorful. It certainly got the vibrancy taken care of, And as far as comparing it with the oils, well, you'll have a look at that just now. I think it stands in its own right as an attractive painting in my view. I've enjoyed it. So I'm not too worried about whether it's as good as oils or not. That's really not the point. I think now I'm very satisfied with these acrylics as great acrylics. And if you want to do a great acrylic painting, these Golden Open Acrylics will certainly help you. Right, let's, I think, get a signature on here and call it a day with the painting, and then we can assess in a moment. Okay, there you are. What do you think? Did the open acrylics give a result that looks like an oil painting? The way I look at it is, once I have varnished the acrylic painting, I think it's going to be actually quite difficult to decide, is it oils or is it acrylics? The fact is, how you use your brushwork and apply those open acrylics is going to determine how the painting looks, and it's going to be pretty close, I think, to an oil painting result. Not quite the textures involved. I never use mediums and gels and impasto mediums with my acrylics, and so I take them on their own merits. What I like about these open acrylics is their vibrancy. I think it's exceptional. I don't feel like I'm losing out using these acrylics, and the result is, I think, a very nice acrylic painting. Now, if I want that extra texture and thicker layers and just a bit more, I think a more tactile looking painting to enjoy up close as well, then it's always going to be oils. And I think oils is simply the medium to choose for that type of effect. But with this open acrylics vibrancy, you're still going to get a great result and you're going to be happy with the painting. So if you're into acrylics, I think this is the one to get. Now don't forget, I have a free painting course for you up here. I have more videos coming, so subscribe to this channel. You're going to have plenty more videos with me in the future. And with that, enjoy your painting, and until next time, cheers for now.